This week, our first post is Every Cause Wants to Be a Cult, in which Eliezer basically says, hey, don't form a cult around rationality, because that would be really stupid.
Here are some examples.
The first quote I pulled out was, a noble cause doesn't need a deep hidden flaw for its adherents to form a cultish in-group. It's sufficient that the adherents be human. Because he started out with a Wikipedia example, where they were acting cultishly with the Wikipedia edits.
Weren't they trying to ban people? What was it? Banning all critics and possible critics of Wikipedia. What do they mean by possible critic? Anyway,
Yeah, his argument is that in the sense that every thermal differential wants to equalize itself, and every computer program wants to become a collection of ad hoc patches, every cause wants to be a cult. Programmers, can you verify this? Does every computer program want to be a collection of ad hoc patches?
In the same way that every cause wants to be a cult. That is to say, if left alone, it will do that, right? Or if not tightly constrained, people, it's like every home improvement project that doesn't have a definitive end, right? And it's like, oh, I'm going to do this. Oh, and I can add this. Oh, man, I don't have that, but I can make it work if I put some duct tape and super glue into it, right?
I see myself in this picture and I don't like it.
There you go. now you get it.
Yeah. It's funny. I don't know if I want the association to be this central in people's minds between cult and what I've been trying to build with the Guild of the Rose Folks, but I did just make that segue, so I guess there it is. But it's funny because it's something we think about a lot, is how to avoid the failure modes of a cult, despite trying to create an organization where it's like hey, you're trying to create a group of people who are aspiring towards something, and so for some people that triggers the knee-jerk reaction of a cult. And so we actually put a ton of energy from the inception of the Guild of the Rose into one of the first things we did actually was look up the traits of a cult and be like, okay, how do we institute policies to mitigate all of the failure modes.
Can I just say how much I like that approach more than saying, how can we convince people we're not a cult? Yeah. It seems like your concern was actually not being one, not with the public perception, which, that's a secondary thing. And that if you're actually not a cult, then public perception will hopefully cue onto that. But
exactly, yeah. Like you honestly shouldn't be getting the public perception of being a cult if you're not being a cult.
I was going to say, people like to call things cults.
All the time. Like, the Bayesian rationality still gets called a cult fairly frequently.
That's entirely true. I mean, the other thing is that we're just always actually working on making course content or improving, the website or the community in some tangible, meaningful way, rather than being like, how do we, let's have a struggle session this week. It's all just let's actually build something and actually do something. And that's how you avoid making a rationality cult. Anyway,
it's awesome that you're doing that, because as is said in the post, the worthiness of a cause does not mean you can spend any less effort in resisting the cult attractor. And if you point to current bad lines, that does not mean you confess your noble cause unworthy. You might think that if the question were cultish, yes or no, then you would be obliged to answer no, or else betray your cause. But that is like thinking that you should divide engines into perfectly efficient and inefficient instead of measuring waste. I think sounds like you guys are doing the right thing.
Hope so. And we've actually recently instituted some sort of less demanding tiers on which you can enter into it. Speaking of making it one of the things that makes a cult, by the way, is making it be very demanding and taking up people's time to the point where they can't maintain outside relationships.
Probably what's the bias where sunk cost?
Yeah.
Avoid sunk costs there too.
Yeah, there's all sorts of aspects of human psychology that are preyed on there. So, partially toward that end, one of the things we've implemented recently is a sort of system where you can join in and you can be part of the. It's sort of a belt system, you could say, or sort of a rank system, and it's like you can be engaged with the guild and be part of that system, and be engaged with the other guild members without necessarily having to attend all of the classes all of the time, because there's this sense that I think we accidentally created where it's like, if you're not attending all the classes all the time, then you're not really part of the guild. And it's like, well, that was putting a burden on people. And so we've backed off from that. I mean, we still provide the courses on a regular basis, and I think people still get a lot of value out of them, but aiming to make it so that you can be part of the guild, but the courses are more optional. And so, for example, the three of you could join and not feel obligated to participate in the courses and just be, more passively.
I'm already in it.
Oh, you are. Yes, you are. I know that.
Although
I know you are.
I have been one of those people that's been sucking at it for a while because jobs and moving are taking up all my time.
But see, the goal with the new system is to make it so that you don't feel that you're sucking at it.
Yeah.
Like you can be an active or an inactive member, and it's not like you're failing. So
Yeah, I still socialize with some of my cohort people and other people just on the Discord, but like I actually don't feel as stressed as I used to now that I think you've been doing a good job, you collectively, like the guild leaders, at, you know, convincing me that actually it is actually okay to be in the presence of the other people. I don't know if I like agree with how hard Eliezer's coming down on this idea that like every group of people with an unusual goal will trend towards the cult attractor unless they make a constant effort to resist it. Because it always struck me as LessWrong is, I don't know, I found it funny when people would say it's cultish because I was like, everybody disagrees with each other all the time. We are having a really difficult time even making a functional community. Like, I think some things are less likely to become cults than others, and in particular one where you get together a lot of people, you know, individualist thinkers from different backgrounds and with different goals.
I mean, I'm glad that he saw that this is a potential failure state. I think, I mean, at least part of this was a reaction to some people getting very excited about his ideas, and then other people saying, well, if you're excited about these ideas that seem really weird and unusual, you must be in some sort of a cult. And like, he made a very strong effort. I mean, he says directly in this, worshipping rationality won't make you sane any more than worshipping gravity enables you to fly. Like, he's directly saying, don't form a cult, guys. That'd be really bad. Let's not do that. And I don't think I've ever seen any other movement of any kind make as much of an effort to be like, hey, let's not be culty. That would be stupid. And yet we still, you know, frequently get, you rationalists, you're a cult kind of thing. Worshipping at the teat of Yud or whatever.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I just ignore those people at this point. I mean,
I do too.
I can't claim that I always successfully did, but it's like now I just correctly pattern match to like, oh, you're not like contributing anything constructive here, and I don't need to engage with.
Yeah, you're just being stupid and destructive for no reason. Yeah,
I'm glad that
I agree. It's just annoying.
Yeah, no, like I don't agree with how hard or how much Eliezer seems to think that things naturally will become cults unless you fight back really hard on pay constant attention. But I am glad that this is here for, you know.
Well, he he did point out the Wikipedia editors thing, which looked like it had some cultish aspects, at least at one point, maybe still. I know you just brought up the struggle sessions thing, but that have become a common feature of everyday life now. Fair enough. So that's kind of scary that we've managed to cultify all of culture somehow.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So maybe the cult attractor thing is fairly common, unless you try to avoid it.
Yeah, maybe I'm just overly optimistic about this, or am the kind of, I don't know.
Maybe you're just in a good community which has gotten strong anti-cult. Yeah.
Well, I mean, kind of, bubble effect was kind of what I was thinking. Maybe I just tend to be attracted towards things that aren't cult-like, because cult-like things give me gross feelings.
Yeah.
Well, one thing is, like, there's probably a bunch of different pieces of code that we're referring to when we say cult, because, like, you know, one of the things that is often associated with it is like having a single charismatic leader.
Hey, now we got at least two.
Yeah, and you know, the more charismatic leaders defer the responsibility. But like, yeah, I don't really think that's this problem that we've struggled with that much. People accuse us of deifying Yudkowsky, but that hasn't ever actually been the case.
Yeah.
Right. It's more like, but you know, like you just pointed out, like you can have struggle sessions without having Mao. So clearly the charismatic leader is not necessary for certain bad pieces of human brain code to run, which is, I don't know, worth paying attention to.
Yeah. Okay, next post.
Yeah, this one's fun.
Reverse stupidity is not intelligence. When he points out that reverse stupidity isn't actually intelligence. He says that you and I believe that flying saucer cults arose in the total absence of any flying saucers. I certainly do. I assume you guys all do too.
I'm glad he said flying saucers and not UFOs.
Right, yeah.
Because UFO cults evolved in fact, this is actually a perfect corollary example. UFO cults did arise in the total non-absence of UFOs.
Yeah.
People looked up, didn't know what they were looking at, and there were unidentified flying objects, right?
Yeah.
And so they're like, oh, let's make this a thing. So as he says, the observation flying saucer cults exist is not evidence against flying saucers. It's not much evidence one way or another. They'd exist either way.
Mm-hmm. We would expect to see flying saucer cults whether or not there were flying saucer cults. Yeah. And he points out that if you actually knew someone was wrong 99.99% of the time on yes or no questions, you could obtain 99.99% accuracy just by reversing their answers. They would need to do all the work of obtaining good evidence entangled with reality and processing that evidence coherently just to anti-correlate that reliably. They would have to be super intelligent to be that stupid.
That's a line that I remembered from my first time reading this.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, okay, you can't be that wrong all the time, right? That said, I know what he's getting at with the analogy, but if only we were talking about people being that level of wrong, that, reliably on yes or no questions.
Yeah. But instead, you just have whatever they say has no correlation.
Yeah.
Because even Trump said things that are true sometimes. He also goes on to say that if stupidity does not reliably anti-correlate with truth, how much less should human evil anti-correlate with truth? Pointing out that you wouldn't want to agree with Stalin, would you?
Oh, sorry, you skipped past my favorite analogy that I've also remembered from, 2000, God.
7, 8?
Yeah, a long time ago. A car with a broken engine cannot drive backwards at 200 miles an hour, even if the engine is really, really broken. It's like, well, when cars work, they go forwards. If it's broken, it must go backwards. And if it's really broken, it can go backwards real fast, right?
Yeah.
It would be really funny if the universe worked like that, but...
That'd be quite the universe.
Yeah.
So, I believe we're all agreed with him that reverse stupidity is not intelligence. He has some corollaries to this principle, and I'm going to read off just about all of them because they were all pretty good. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay. First corollary, to argue against an idea honestly, you should argue against the best argument of the strongest advocate. Arguing against weaker advocates proves nothing because even the strongest idea will attract weak advocates, which is the birth of the steel manning concept, which was fleshed out around this time both by Eliezer and Scott Alexander when he was writing the Least Convenient Possible World posts about the same time. And I love that, I now listen to podcasts of people who I'm assuming know very little about the rational world, but use the term steel manning. I was there when that was born.
Oh, has that actually hit the general public now?
Yep.
Excellent.
The same public that knows the word straw man.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah. No, I'm just saying,
yeah.
it might not be one out
it's
of
not
two
all
people,
over,
but
but
it's one out of two people we talk to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely penetrated a lot of podcasts where I'm sure this person has had no direct exposure to LessWrong.
Yeah, it's cool. Another corollary, exhibiting sad, pathetic lunatics driven to madness by their apprehension of an idea is no evidence against that idea.
Yeah, which keeps reminding me that everyone that I know or who has heard of rationality and hates it always brings up Roko's basilisk.
Yeah. It's the whole ethos of the quote tweet on Twitter where it's like, look at this idiot.
Yeah.
It's like that's some people's whole personality is look at it's like, yeah, so ignore them. Don't waste any time.
Don't show me idiots.
Yeah. Just because an idiot said something stupid doesn't mean that the opposite is true.
Yeah, you click the wrong. You should have clicked block, not retweet. Like why are you spreading this?
Yeah, exactly. He says, someone once said, not all conservatives are stupid, but most stupid people are conservatives. If you cannot place yourself in a state of mind where this statement, true or false, seems completely irrelevant as a critique of conservatism, you are not ready to think rationally about politics.
Yeah, I mean, you could just take conservatives out and put a blank and put almost any thing in there. It's like, yep, your point.
I'm trying to think of, throwing in a non-political example just to try and drive that point home. Stupid people believe the Earth is flat, or rather, how is it? Most stupid people believe the Earth is flat, but not all stupid people believe the Earth is flat, or not all people who believe the Earth is flat is stupid. I butchered that. Sorry.
It would be more like not all Catholic priests are pedophiles, but most pedophiles are Catholic priests.
And is that that's completely irrelevant as a criticism of Catholicism? Then?
Yeah.
Is it?
I mean, the
So
criticism
that's
is
why
that when they found out about it, they moved the guys around and protected them.
That's why I wanted to bring it up, because I feel like if we generated a non-political example, we can say actually that is a critique, right? Mm-hmm. If Catholicism, if this was the case, attracted the majority of the world to pedophiles, it would seem like that might actually be a critique of Catholicism, right?
I don't know, maybe when the accusation is true, but...
Well, he said it's completely irrelevant whether the statement is true or false.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, so I was listening to this on the drive here, and that's the one that jumped out at me, and I was thinking, I don't know if that's true if we... I liked your example more than mine. It was something negative about Catholicism that it attracts so many pedophiles, right? Mm-hmm. Wouldn't it? Although it wouldn't have any claims about whether or not Catholicism was true. Maybe that's the way to think about it. Catholicism could be 100% true, even if it had 100% of the world's pedophiles.
Right.
Okay. That makes sense.
I mean, basically, just because a lot of people with a negative trait are into something doesn't mean anything bad about that actual thing.
Like the Steven Universe fandom.
Yes, that's a great example.
I was thinking fandoms in general, but yeah, that's a good one.
Not all assholes are Steven Universe fans, but most Steven Universe fans are assholes.
It's about Rick and Morty, and that makes sense
maybe
too.
Rick and Morty, yeah.
I do find this quite confusing, actually. I think it actually matters that the point being made is calling conservatives stupid, rather than, like, if you said the thing about pedophiles and so forth, it's like, well, that's a concrete moral failure. Being stupid just means, like, just because stupid people like this thing doesn't mean it's bad. It's uncorrelated to it being bad. Pedophiles liking a thing is not uncorrelated to it being bad.
Well,
maybe,
I mean, maybe. What if pedophiles really like golden retrievers?
I would have questions.
But I like that point, because I'm watching a lot of Wheel of Fortune lately, because the Celebrity Wheel of Fortune was on Hulu during the plague years, and now for some reason Netflix put on like 3 seasons of it, and it's delightful. It is very much a mass consumption show built for middle America, who's home at 6 p.m. watching this show, right? And they've been doing this for like 40 years. Okay. And so, like, it might be true that most people who watch this show, like, if you're going to be uncharitable, are stupid or something. But the show doesn't matter about that, right?
Right.
You say the same thing about The Simpsons or
Things with general appeal.
Yeah.
It could very well be that most people who watch Rick and Morty are assholes, but that doesn't necessarily mean Rick and Morty is bad.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. I'm glad that we drilled that home.
You need to be able to argue against genocide without saying Hitler wanted to exterminate the Jews. If Hitler hadn't advocated genocide, would it thereby become okay? So can't just point to a bad person advocating for something and saying that means that thing is bad.
Hitler would have been much less bad if he hadn't advocated for that, though.
Yes, but like, for example, people could say, well, Trump created the vaccine, therefore the vaccine is bad.
Right.
Or like Hitler did advocate for animal rights.
Yes, he did.
I'm glad that you made that point, because I brought that up with somebody recently, and they had trouble believing me. And I'm not sure if I'm right, but I think I am. That
Which thing?
I'm about to drop the bomb. Like, if Trump had been a huge proponent of the vaccine, he's like, look, we worked hard on this, I'm responsible, and conservatives loved it and were lining up to get it, like a midnight release of a new video game console. I bet that liberals would be less inclined to get it by like a gigantic margin.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, but Trump is very proud of it and does advocate for it.
Well, now he does.
No, he did from the very beginning.
In the beginning, he was saying this isn't a big deal. It's all
he was
fine.
saying COVID wasn't a big deal, but he fast-tracked the vaccine.
Let's switch the entire hypothetical then. Where, the whole time he was COVID's terrible. Everyone stay home, wear masks, yada yada. I can imagine where us smart, scientifically informed, left-leaning blue tribers would be like, this Trump guy's full of shit. I'm gonna go to the store and not wear a mask and lick all the doorknobs I want, right?
Yeah.
Didn't a prominent Democratic politician say, like, I will never take the Trump vaccine?
Yes.
Yeah. It's like,
perfect.
This is the level of thinking that we're.
He's got his cuties all over it.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, but I'm glad that confirms my prediction to an extent.
I have I believe with more than 50% confidence that the vaccine was delayed a couple of weeks, so it was released after the election. Because if it had been released beforehand, then he would have gotten a bump from it and may have been reelected. Which I don't think really matters that much. It's not like we had enough production in play to get it more doses out earlier, but also kind of seems like sneaky bullshit. I'd rather that not happen because it sets a bad precedent in the future, even if it didn't actually have any effects on vaccine in this timeline. Yeah. Anyways, another corollary, willingness to believe something will change along with willingness to affiliate with people who are known for believing it. i.e., some people may be reluctant to believe that God does not exist, not because there is evidence that God does exist, but rather because they're reluctant to affiliate with Richard Dawkins. Which, yeah.
Not as relevant anymore, unfortunately, but man, I did really hate when the whole the skeptic, new atheist movement was happening, and people were like, the atheists are so shrill, though.
Right.
I had a lot of, that was my heyday of internet time, which I'm glad I got all onto my system.
No,
15
I'm saying
years
I'm sad
ago.
that this isn't relevant anymore.
Oh, sure.
You mean,
As
because Richard
relevant.
Dawkins' part isn't relevant, but it's even more relevant now that people are like, well, if this person believes something, it must be evil.
Yeah. I would actually say the internet has gotten dumber, not smarter.
Significantly.
You're more likely to see that form of argument, although it's not about atheists and Richard Dawkins.
Yeah. It's about everything now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that happens all the time. Another corollary, if your current computer stops working, you can't conclude that everything about the current system is wrong. It just, yeah.
Yeah.
And finally, if 100 inventors fail to build flying machines using metal and wood and canvas, it doesn't imply that what you really need is a flying machine of bone and flesh. If 1,000 projects fail to build artificial intelligence using electricity-based computing, that doesn't mean electricity is the source of the problem. Until you understand the problem, hopeful reversals are exceedingly unlikely to hit the solution. Because, we got to bring it back to AI in the end.
I like that last line, though, because that succinctly summarizes the point, too. Like, until you understand the problem, hopeful reversals are exceedingly unlikely to hit the solution.
Yeah.
Like, you can't present me with a confusing problem and then a solution, a proposed solution, and I'm like, let's just flip that on its head and see if that gets us closer to the right answer, because it probably definitely won't.
Yeah.
This is one thing you learn from programming is like, well, I'm doing it wrong, but if I did everything the opposite, now it would definitely be wrong also.
But it'd be more wronger.
Yeah.
It also reminds me how common it is in science fiction for androids to have positronic brains.
Okay.
And it's funny because it's like positrons being the opposite of electrons. It's like, well, it's gonna magically work better because it's positrons.
Is that why?
I don't know. It's just funny to me because it's like, why would positrons make for better computing like this? But I don't know. Whatever. It sounds cool. Is really the point of it, honestly.
I think, wasn't it Star Trek that started the positronic brain, or was that pre-Star Trek?
I feel like it's pre-Star Trek, but I can't substantiate that.
Because in Star Trek they had a literal technobabble department where they're just like techno-sounding words, and so someone probably pulled positronic out of the hat, and I was like, yeah, let's go with that one.
I want that job.
All right. Positronic brain. Is a positronic brain possible? Interesting.
Why would you want one?
Originally conceived by Isaac Asimov. Okay. Way back in 1939. The positron was a newly discovered particle at that time. So the buzzword positronic added a scientific connotation to the concept in his 1942 story Runaround. Okay.
It's like the quantum of the time, I guess.
Yeah. Neat. Now it would be a quantum brain. It's kind of cool that they, took Isaac Asimov's old term. Yeah. Although I guess maybe they didn't even know it was Asimov at that time. It was widespread enough. Anyways, that's all I had from that post. Did you guys have anything in addition?
This is pretty succinct, actually.
Yeah, I feel like it makes the point it wants to make pretty quick.
Yeah, it's one of those LessWrong posts where the first time you read it, you're like, yes, thank you. That's what's good about the sequences.
Yeah. All right. Well, for next time, our two sequence posts that we're going to talk about are going to be Argument Screens Off Authority and Hug the Query. Let's smush.